All right, it is time for one of the most requested videos, and I am warning you right now, I do not know what I'm talking about, but I'm going to try anyway. People have been asking me about my Palpatine build. They want to see it. So I'm going to walk you through, for good or for bad, strap in with the laughs. I'm going to show you what I've ended up building. It's doing okay. We've cleared all normal bosses. We've done witnessed all normal bosses. We've done Shaper, Uber Shaper, Uber with all the witnesses and all that shit. But we haven't done Uber of all the others, okay? So we are 1 of 7 is I think how the number goes. All the other bosses are down, and we are able to kind of blast through tier 16s and all that. So let me just show you basically where we're at with the build. So this is my Palpatine build. The original concept of this was we wanted to make something that looked like unlimited power Palpatine. If you've been following the videos, you're going to know that we wanted to see lots of lightning. I'm using Crackling Lance here, was the original concept of what the build was going to be. However, the gem that we actually ended up getting was Arc of Surging off of the very first lab. And because of that, we swapped over to this ability, which is the Arc of Surging. Now, the cool thing about this is when it hits a minion or whatever you're targeting, it does less damage to that than it does when it bounces to something else. This is what I've noticed. So because of that, it is very strong in packs, and it seems like I was doing a lot of damage. But then when I got to bosses, I was really struggling. So originally we added in the Penance Mark, which looked like this, and I would hit it with my other abilities, spawning more minions, and then after that, I could then hit those other minions from Penance Mark in order to be able to get that bouncing damage. The problem with that arose was that because I was using Arc of Surging, what we noticed was the minions would actually get KO'd as I'm summoning them if I'm using Arc of Surging, which is why we are actually using a different ability to summon the minions. Now, when you're killing minion packs, this doesn't really matter as much, right? Because we're going to have minions we're bouncing off of, and they're just normal minions. But on bosses, you'll notice in the original videos, my DPS is very, very, very bad. And then we realized we're going to add Penance Mark. Eventually, we upgraded to Hydrosphere because the Hydrosphere doesn't require us to do the original thing of this, where we do this and then mark it. This is 2 extra casts, whereas the Hydrosphere we just put up and then it bounces as well. I've been told that a gentleman made a video about this. I went out and looked for it and found there was a video by Jung, I think, what is his name? I'm sorry, I'm still kind of new. I'm going to get everyone's names wrong, in which he talks about the Hydrosphere being bugged. This could be the case. I don't actually know. I'm not an expert enough to tell you if the Hydrosphere is bugged or not, but what I will tell you is the damage seems the same when I use this like this, or if I use the Penance Mark and then bounce it off the minions. From what I can tell, the damage basically seems the same, but the Hydrosphere is a way better way of actually utilizing the skill because you can use and move the ball around as needed, so this gives you something to proc up. I actually don't like the Hydrosphere that much, though, because for some reason it misses it quite often, and I don't know if it's because I think you have to, like, hit it with a shock in order for it to actually be able to bounce, etc., but sometimes it just doesn't work, and so I find myself in bosses, if I really want reliable DPS, to be using the Penance Mark. However, I know this with the Hydrosphere, if you take Hydrosphere and move it and then hit it, it will then bounce, whereas opposed to if you have it in place and you're just spamming, sometimes it won't actually do the bounce. So that's just something I've noticed. But basically, this build is the following. It's Arc of Surging, linked together with Lightning Penetration, Archmage support, Spell Echo, Arcane Surge support, faster casting. We use Flame Dash for movement with Frost Blink as well. And the reason I use both of them is Flame Dash won't cancel an animation, and I am using Greater Spell Echo. Here's another confusing part. People come in and be like, hey, did you know you're doing this wrong, DM? But in reality, we're not, is that the Greater Spell Echo actually does stack with normal Spell Echo. So if I have this and I cast once, I'm shooting 4 times in a row at a fast pace. If I take out Spell Echo, I'm only going to shoot 3 times. So they do actually stack, meaning per individual cast, we're getting 4 casts of it. And this is an Archmage build, so we're stacking mana in order to get as much mana as possible to deal more damage. As well as the same time, we are taking Mind Over Matter to give us some more tanky stats from the fact that we have lots of mana. 40% of damage is taken as mana. Now, I will have a link to the POB to make this part of it easier, but I'm just going to break this down very quickly. Effectively, we went elemental damage, enough HP to try to be survivable. This is soft core trade, so I'm not worried about dying as much. I did do the Arcane Surge bonuses here, and this is a Templar-related build, so we went with Illuminated Devotion, as well as Divine Guidance and Conviction of Power. And then we took the Jewel Socket here, as well as we did maximum HP and mana regen. We got another jewel socket here with a Watcher's Eye to try to do a little bit of synergy there. We have more maximum mana. Basically, you're going to see a theme here of us just taking as much mana as possible. And I know a lot of this could be probably better, you know, min-maxed on the board. I'm not trying to say this is an amazing build or anything, but people have been asking. And then you can see lightning damage here, maximum shock. We went with damage taken recouped as mana. In fact, as I'm seeing this, I'm seeing another one that can probably be refunded right here in terms of... Actually, no, that we need that one in terms of points. Or maybe we could go through here, this maximum life instead. But anyway, increased cast speed and mana regeneration rate. Lightning damage. I noticed I didn't cast speed because we're casting 4 times in a row and getting locked in place quite a bit. And then we're doing max HP, maximum mana here, and just things that kind of give us damage. Came down here to get the guard skill. Duration, because we're using Arcane Cloak, is our defensive buff, as well as more mana here. Get more HP there if we can take it. Again, mana regen, and then cost increase. We want things that increase the cost of it because, again, Archmage is where the damage comes from. Now I'm using both Flame Dash and Frost Blink. That way, Frost Blink, if I'm in the middle of something, I can actually blink out of it. Whereas if I am casting, I can't blink out of Flame Dash. It will happen afterwards. So this is just a way for me to cancel my spell Echo. I'm not going to talk about the Atlas Tree and all that because I was just being a Blithe enjoyer. And then I swapped to try out this new thing, which is actually Goratha. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher, again, everyone's name. I'm still learning these. I use his tree to try out the Abyss thing. I actually just don't like Abyss farming. This Arc of Surging isn't that great at Abyss farming. Anyway, you get too close, you one-shot the Spire. You get too far away, you can't hit enough of the mobs because it only hits like 9 different mobs at a time or something. So I wouldn't recommend this for the whole Magic Find Cheese that is going on. But it does actually work pretty good against bosses due to the fact you can either do Hydrosphere or Mark of Penance, create these minions, and then bounce off them. I actually really like having both the options available because the Penance mark seems more reliable. You can reset the mark by recasting on somebody, then recasting the ability in order to summon those minions again and again and again, which gives me more flash charges, etc., which I quite enjoy. Otherwise, I kind of have to continually resummon the Hydrosphere. But again, there's the thing that I've been told the Hydrosphere is bugged. I don't know. I was using it before I heard all of that literally anyway, because I've been playing this build for a while and the videos are behind, so I've seen a couple comments in some of my previous videos like, oh, I see you saw his video and started using the Hydrosphere. I'm pretty sure that's not actually the chronological order of what happened, and that people were watching the Arc of Surging and then realized that, hey, DM's an idiot, and somehow he's pumping large damage numbers. There's probably something going on with Arc of Surging, and then people looked into it and started realizing it's actually quite good, if I had to imagine what was going on. Now, in terms of items, I am using Pledge of Hands, Judgment Staff, 6-link here with the Arc of Surging that I've mentioned, Flame Dash, Frost Blink with faster casting. I'm using the replica Calm's Heart here, and I did land +1 to all maximum resistances. This is Stygian Vice with just resistances and HP as well. You're going to notice we're using Lightning Exposure and Unnerve on the gloves, whereas the boots are action speed, regen on the implicits, and again, just resistances, movement speed. We have a couple just Chaos Rings here, and you can tell I'm a Blithe enjoyer. I got some Meteor Tower bonuses. I'm using Asturias Foible, best roll I could get, and I did quality these, although I'm not quite sure that that was a good use of my currency. I liked it anyway. And then I one-time no whammy to Vow slam on this because Starforge PC was in my chat and told me do it or no balls. I said I had balls, and I was rewarded by having balls with the +2 level of Socketed Lightning Gem. That's basically the build that's going on here. I use a Code Flask here, and you know these can all be better. I'm using the replica. And I'll have the Code Flask just so I can get through Uber Shaper a little bit easier. And the build has been able to do all bosses. Uber Shaper seems to be a decent build. I'm seeing other people out there, and I love to see it, that are finding way better ways to use this build. Zizarin did a 1-for-1 build of mine, and I've heard he's going to try to improve it and maybe teach me a little bit of a ways to go with it. I've seen other people running Arc Surging as well, and just doing a way better job than I could have with the original build. So I love to see that stuff, and hopefully I can learn from these people and improve the build further. I will say that in terms of what my goal was for this build and the league was specifically, I just wanted to have a fun time with a build that was around Palpatine that was shooting lightning. That was my whole thought process, and we realized, let's just stack mana. We did a POB for like, one day before the launch of the league, and we ended up doing roughly what we figured out in the POB. People have asked if there was a guide or something I based this off of. No, just the chat. The chat helped a ton with, information. Obviously, I'm being fed information by my chat, and this is my second league playing the game, so it's not truly 100% blind, though I did see people saying, a couple comments saying things like, hey, nice acting in your Cirrus vid. You didn't go in blind and be the first try. And I'm not saying I'm a god for doing it, but these absolutely are blind. When I say blind, it is blind. I don't go watch a video on it, then go live stream and be like, I'm going to pretend I didn't see it. So it's the game isn't as hard as people might actually think it is. And I actually think this is more of a positive point is what I'm trying to make than a negative point. If you're a newer player, you're not going to have a chat sitting there like, answering questions for you when you're like, does this gym work with this one? For instance, like I had, but you do have access to like Google, Zizaran's University. You have access to all of these, macro guides. You have access to all of these different sources that I'm specifically avoided just because I wanted to have the experience of learning it with myself and also the chat and also the content creators who come by and help me. So I think that what I would like to take out of this experience of Know This is that I think the game is something you should not be as intimidated by as I see the response from newer players where it's so intimidating I don't even want to try it. Yes, I completely have an easy life and job of just having to sit and play Path of Exile all day, so I have way more hours than anyone realistically can expect to have to learn the game, but it is possible. I have 500 hours into Path of Exile approximately right now, and some of those hours are literally just the game running overnight. And I didn't go watch a bunch of guides. I had the chat feeding me information. So I think really what I want to preach out of this is two things. One of which is if you're me, like, he's not truly blind, okay? This is a self-report that a lot of people saying this are like, I have 5,000 hours in the game and I never beat Cirrus. He's not blind, he's acting. That's a self-report on you being bad. So when I see these comments, I actually kind of just laugh at you, to be quite honest. Number two is the positive side of it is if you are a newer player, it is completely possible to learn the game. It's completely possible to make your own build using bits of information that you've acquired. This second build, I played the first league, so I do have information that came with me, and I have the chat helping me out with information as well. But you have access to Google, build guides, all of these different sources. And I just want to encourage people who think it might not be a game that they can tackle because it's so overwhelming. I want to keep reiterating and mentioning this point at the end of the video because it's not that bad. It's really not that bad. It's going to take hours, but what you want is a game that you can play for 500 hours or 1,000 hours. What you don't want is a game that you know everything about it in 20 hours. That's happened in other games already.